almost everybody on the planet, I'm staying at home and I'm talking to my friends and family on the phone or like this, and I'm trying to leave the house as little as possible. But I have a dog, so I go and walk my dog. So Montreal is like the biggest city in our province, and we are the most hardly hit in all of the rest of Canada. It's where we have the biggest majority of cases, a lot more than Toronto or Vancouver, because we have so many people that are from France and from the rest of Europe, from Italy. And right before the epidemic started, we had a week off and everybody was traveling back and forth to Europe. So there's a lot of cases for such a small population. And so everybody's been really careful in staying at home. And it's unfortunately, you know, the most vulnerable who are getting hit. So all the elderly people and, you know, the older than 70-year-olds they're dying in really big numbers. So it's really hard and sad. We can't have groups of people together. We have to have 2 meters between everybody when you leave the house. Like if you stay with people, you can be, you know, you're in confinement with them. So that's okay. But I live alone. So it's really hard. I have not touched another human being in 6 weeks. I'm like, you know, if you go to the park and play football, the police can come and give you a ticket. You know, it's rules, and we can't leave the different regions. So I live in Montreal and I can't go to the countryside, or I have to stay in my city. One of the first things that was put on hold or on pause was theater. Because you know, you don't want a big group of people sitting together in a dark room with all these actors spitting on each other on stage. So I had a show with the symphonic orchestra. I was doing a bit of Molière with the orchestra, and that was the first thing that was cancelled. And I was starting to shoot a comedy series at the end of March. They pulled the plug on that too, and I don't know when it's gonna happen, if it's gonna happen. So all the shooting for films and television are also on hold, and we're thinking maybe of going back on sets at the end of the summer, maybe around August. But I think that's wishful thinking. It's going to depend on the second wave. So right now I'm just staying at home and I'm making bread for my nieces and cookies. Like everybody else, everybody's making bread here. I don't know about you guys in Russia. Everybody's making bread. You can't find flour anymore. It's like it's war, you know. There's like a flour shortage because everybody's making bread. So, you know, it's a very strange period, but it's also good because I've been working so much in the past few years, and I think I was very tired and I didn't know. So now I'm, you know, for the first 2 weeks I was panicked. I was like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. I'm not used to not doing anything. But now there's a lot of good things for me, although we're living in a tragedy, that are going to come out of this. So it's a very solitary time, but I think it's good sometimes to just, you know, be with yourself. And I don't have any children, so it's possible for me. But all my friends and brother who have like all these little children, they have a complete different reality from mine right now. I feel like I'm in the monastery. I'm like a nun. I have a lot of time to think. You know, for the past year before, because I was preparing for the show, I was reading about coronaviruses, and I was so when this started, it felt like it was, you know, at first, when I first heard about it in January in China, I was reading about it and I was writing to my director and I was like, seriously, this is like, it's our show, it's continuing, what's going on? It's so weird. And it felt like the fiction was just like going on to reality. So it was a very strange feeling. We still feel like we're, you know, what are we going to remain from this period? What are we going to gain from it? And in 50 years, what are people going to say about how this was handled, and how, as a human species, we went through this and learned from it and tried to do things differently for the next pandemic, because there's going to be another one in, you know, 5, 10, 50 years, 100 years. We don't know, but Yeah, it's like science fiction. In my preparation, I watched the film Contagion by Steven Soderbergh, which is, I think, very, very well made and very similar to what we're going through today. But most of my preparation, when I read a script, I take notes when I have questions, and I had a lot of questions and interrogations about like some of the more scientific things in the script. So I did a lot of research online, especially so I would know enough scientifically about what I was talking about that it would look like I've been, studying and working in this for the past 20 years, which I had only been for the past few months. And with the director, we worked very closely together to create this person that is extremely vibrant and extremely alive and human, but very contained. And that was, I'm somebody who's more extroverted, so I had to really work to keep things in, which was a lot of fun. It was actually great work, and the director really helped me in that way. Right now in Canada, we have this amazing doctor who's called Horatio Arruda, and he's doing like the job that my character did in the show. And I wish I would have known him before doing the show, because he would have inspired me a lot. He's a wonderful doctor, and he speaks to us every day on TV to tell us what's going on and blah, blah. So I wish I would have known him before, but I didn't. So I had to rely on internet and the director and the authors who really guided me through it. Before we go to university here, we go to like a college, like a pre-college for 2 years, and I went in science. But it's not that I failed. I was just like lacking motivation, and actually I really wanted to act, and I had done theater in high school. So it's not like I failed the exams to be a doctor and then, okay, I'm going to be an actress. No, because I didn't have the grades. I don't think I would have made it. I really like biology and chemistry, but physics and maths were just like really bad. So yeah, so I went to theater school instead, but that's actually, I think I'm much more suited to be an actress than to be a doctor. My character is, she's the lead doctor of the sanitary lab in the city of Montreal. And there's this very strange virus that starts killing people. And it starts with the community of Inuits, who are the people from up north in Canada. And it starts spreading into the population, and people are getting very, very sick. And it's, kids, older people, it just, differently from the COVID-19, which hits harder older people, this one is just like hitting, randomly people. And so we have no idea where it comes from. We don't know how to stop it. And so we're working very hard during the 10 episodes to find a cure for the symptoms, and try to find out where it originated from, which is the most difficult thing. So it's like a thriller. And what's fun about the show is that the audience knows where the virus comes from, and we don't. So the audience is always like one step ahead, and we're like running after. So the lead character is the coronavirus, actually. And we're trying to figure out where it came from. I actually function quite well in stressful situations. I get very, very focused. So in that sense, I'm a bit like my character, although she's very, what I'm not able to do is to put my emotions aside as well as she does. She's when she's in a mindset, when she's working, Anne-Marie is able to put like all her personal feelings aside to do her job and to do it to the best of her capacity. So that's something that she does way better than me. Although I can be very focused and good under pressure, I'm too emotional sometimes. Like there's moments in the show where Anne-Marie has to separate a mom from her child who is dying, like people are living through this today with their parents that they can't go and visit in the hospital. And she has to think that it's more important to protect the population than to have this mom that could be infected by her son, even though he's going to die. So these are situations that are extremely tragic and difficult. And Anne-Marie is able to, keep her focus and put her emotions aside. And she's a mom too. She has a teenage daughter. So yeah, she's going to be put in situations where it's going to be harder and harder to put her emotions aside. The writers, they're a couple, and they write with their son. So the three of them started researching and writing for the show, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago. But in their research, when they talked to all these epidemiologists and infectiologists, you know, they knew that something like this could happen because it's happened with, you know, the SARS, and it happened with different viruses. So they had to choose which kind of epidemic could we have, and the choices aren't that great. So they went with the coronavirus, and that's actually what happened in real life. So it's a very strange, it's a coincidence, actually. So in March, I had the audition and I got it, and I was very happy. And we started shooting the show, like we started doing the pre-production during the summer, and we started shooting at the beginning of August. And we started with all the scenes in the lab and all the in the offices. So it was very intense. For the first 3-4 weeks of shooting, I had like all these really hard lines to learn, like talking about all these viruses and MERS-CoV and all these different types of it. So I was just like, I felt like a scientific, I felt like a real doctor, and I was really, you know, I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. So I felt like I was finally living the dream. But no, right now I'm just waiting for my real job to start again. May it be on a TV set or movie set or in the theater. Because like, I'm not going to do like read some theater on the internet. A lot of people are doing it, and I'm like, good for them, but I don't feel like doing it. I had like a comedy that was going to start, but I don't know when it's going to. Yeah, and there's this show that we're going to shoot the 6th season. It's called Les Pays d'en haut, which is a period piece. So it's set in 1875. And it's like up north in Canada, and we're like the builders of the country. It's a lot of fun. It's like a Western. It's really cool. So I'm going to be shooting that maybe if it starts again. I've done a lot, so because that's what I studied in, you know, that was actually my first love, you know, what I really wanted to do. And I've done like creations from here. We have a very effervescent theater community because, you know, we're a small French minority in a big sea of English speaking people. You know, we're only like 7 million in like 400 million English speakers. So I think maybe that's what made us so, it's part of our identity. So there's a lot of theater creations, there's a lot of classics. So I did a great show last year, which was written by a great author from here, Michel Marc Bouchard. And we're supposed to do it again, like to redo it in October, but I don't know if there's going to be any theater right now because of the situation. And you know, when I play in the theater, it makes me a better actress for film, and playing on film makes me a better actress in the theater. So it's just experience. What I like is telling stories. So whatever the format is, I need to do. And I'm lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to do all of that, and I just hope it keeps on going. I'm gonna say his name in a bad way, but Mikhalkov. I used to love his films. Like in the 90s, he made a wonderful film that was called Anna, which he followed his daughter. It was like a documentary. And I remember seeing that film, and it was such a big shock, and I just found it so beautiful. And of course, I've seen like Tarkovsky, but I really need to see like modern day. I realize that I don't have access because films don't travel as easily as they used to. And it's difficult to have access to films when they're not represented in the cinema, or so not that many Russian films get to Montreal, unfortunately. Even if, you know, he's a young director, if I saw that he's got a vision, that he's inspired, that he can write, that he knows how to talk to actors, you know, that those are things that are very important. When you go work on a film, the director is, you know, the film is supposed to be like in his head, or like around, you know, his imagination, and he has to be able to translate that to the cinematographer, the art direction, the actors, and so we're all in the same. And sometimes in films, it's difficult for directors to communicate what they want. So that's very important to me, to be able to have a dialogue with the director. But, you know, if the script is good, if I'm available, if I don't have to learn Russian in 2 weeks, then yeah, I'd probably say yes, just for the experience. That would be amazing. And just to be able to work with a different film crew. I shot for a few days in Japan on a film, and the director was from Belgium and the lead actress, but everybody on set was from Japan, and it was so different their way of working, and it was so interesting that, you know, it's, although we do the same job, it's just different ways of doing it. So that would be a great experience. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned, I don't know enough Russian directors. Shame on me. I have to do my homework. So there's a film that I made a few years ago that went to a festival. I don't remember if it was in Moscow or St. Petersburg, but it was shown there, and I was supposed to go, and I had a thing at work, and I couldn't go, and I was so. And it was a film about hockey, so it was perfect, and supposedly it worked really, really well during the festival. I think it was in Moscow, but I couldn't go, unfortunately. That was my last occasion where I could have gone. There's a series that I really loved, but maybe you don't have access to it because it's not very good for the Soviets. They did an HBO about Chernobyl. It was amazing. That was like one of my favorite shows I've seen this year. It's wonderfully shot and acted, and I really love that. I'm trying to think in English, what's the title? Oh, The Handmaid's Tale. That's really good. Yeah, it's like a very big feminist, oppressing show. It's very good.